Appendix 1. The Austrian Note. Count Berchtold, Austrian Minister for Foreign Affairs, to Count Menschdorf, Austrian Ambassador in London. Communicated by Count Menschdorf, July 24, 1914, translation, from British Documents in Public Record Office. The Austro-Hungarian government felt compelled to address the following note to the Serbian government on the 23rd July, through the medium of the Austro-Hungarian minister at Belgrade. On the 31st of March, 1909, the Serbian minister in Vienna, on the instructions of the Serbian government, made the following declaration to the imperial and royal government. Serbia recognizes that the fait accompli regarding Bosnia has not affected her rights, and consequently she will conform to the decisions that the powers may take in conformity with Article 25 of the Treaty of Berlin. In deference to the advice of the great powers, Serbia undertakes to renounce from now onwards the attitude of protest and opposition which she has adopted with regard to the annexation since last autumn. She undertakes, moreover, to modify the direction of her policy with regard to Austria-Hungary and to live in future on good neighborly terms with the latter. The events of recent years, and in particular the painful events of the 28th June last, have shown the existence of a subversive movement, with the object of detaching a part of the territories of Austria-Hungary from the monarchy. The movement, which had its birth under the eye of the Serbian government, has gone so far as to make itself manifest on both sides of the Serbian frontier in the shape of acts of terrorism, and a series of outrages and murders. Far from carrying out the formal undertakings contained in the declaration of the 31st of March, 1909, the Royal Serbian government has done nothing to repress these movements. It has permitted the criminal machinations of various societies and associations directed against the monarchy, and has tolerated unrestrained language on the part of the press, the glorification of the perpetrators of outrages, and the participation of officers and functionaries in subversive agitation. It has permitted an unwholesome propaganda in public instruction. In short, it has permitted all manifestations of a nature to incite the Serbian population to hatred of the monarchy and contempt of its institutions. This culpable tolerance of the Royal Serbian government had not ceased at the moment when the events of the 28th June last proved its fatal consequences to the whole world. It results from the depositions and confessions of the criminal perpetrators of the outrage of the 28th June that the Sarajevo assassinations were planned in Belgrade, that the arms and explosives with which the murderers were provided had been given to them by Serbian officers and functionaries belonging to the Narodna Odbrana, and finally, that the passage into Bosnia of the criminals and their arms was organized and effected by the chiefs of the Serbian Frontier Service. The above-mentioned results of the magisterial investigation did not permit the Austro-Hungarian government to pursue any longer the attitude of expectant forbearance which they have maintained for years in the face of the machinations hatched in Belgrade, and thence propagated in the territories of the monarchy. The results, on the contrary, impose on them the duty of putting an end to the intrigues which form a perpetual menace to the tranquility of the monarchy. To achieve this end, the imperial and royal government see themselves compelled to demand from the Royal Serbian government a formal assurance that they condemn this dangerous propaganda against the monarchy. In other words, the whole series of tendencies, the ultimate aim of which is to detach from the monarchy territories belonging to it, and that they undertake to suppress by every means this criminal and terrorist propaganda. In order to give a formal character to this undertaking, the Royal Serbian government shall publish in the front page of their official journal of the 26th of July the following declaration. The Royal Government of Serbia condemn the propaganda directed against Austria-Hungary, i.e., the general tendency of which the final aim is to detach from the Austro-Hungarian monarchy territories belonging to it, and they sincerely deplore the fatal consequences of these criminal proceedings. The royal government regret that Serbian officers and functionaries participated in the above-mentioned propaganda, and thus compromised the good neighborly relations to which the royal government were solemnly pledged by their declaration of the 31st of March 1909. The royal government, who disapprove and repudiate all idea of interfering or attempting to interfere with the destinies of the inhabitants of any part whatsoever of Austria-Hungary, consider it their duty formally to warn officers and functionaries, and the whole population of the kingdom, that henceforward they will proceed with the utmost rigor against persons who may be guilty of such machinations, which they will use all their efforts to anticipate and suppress. This declaration shall simultaneously be communicated to the royal army as an order of the day by His Majesty the King, and shall be published in the official bulletin of the army. The Royal Serbian Government further undertake 1. To suppress any publication which incites to hatred and contempt to the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, and the general tendency of which is directed against its territorial integrity. 2. To dissolve immediately the society styled Narodna Odbrana, to confiscate all its means of propaganda, and to proceed in the same manner against other societies and their branches in Serbia which engage in propaganda against the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. The royal government shall take the necessary measures to prevent the societies dissolved from continuing their activity under another name and form. 3. To eliminate without delay from public instruction in Serbia, both as regards the teaching body and also as regards the methods of instruction, everything that serves, or might serve, to foment the propaganda against Austria-Hungary. 4. To remove from the military service, and from the administration in general, all officers and functionaries guilty of propaganda against the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, whose names and deeds the Austro-Hungarian government reserve to themselves the right of communicating to the royal government. 5. To accept the collaboration in Serbia of representatives of the Austro-Hungarian government for the suppression of the subversive movement directed against the territorial integrity of the monarchy. 6. To take judicial proceedings against accessories to the plot of the 28th June who are on Serbian territory. Delegates of the Austro-Hungarian government will take part in the investigation relating thereto. 7. To prevent by effective measures the cooperation of the Serbian authorities in the illicit traffic in arms and explosives across the frontier, to dismiss and punish severely the officials of the frontier service at Skabac and Loznica guilty of having assisted the perpetrators of the Sarajevo crime by facilitating their passage across the frontier. 8. To prevent by effective measures the cooperation of the Serbian authorities in the illicit traffic in arms and explosives across the frontier, to dismiss and punish severely the officials of the frontier service at Skabac and Loznica guilty of having assisted the perpetrators of the Sarajevo crime by facilitating their passage across the frontier. 9. To furnish the imperial and royal government with explanations regarding the unjustifiable utterances of high Serbian officials, both in Serbia and abroad, who, notwithstanding their official position, have not hesitated since the crime of 28 June to express themselves in interviews in terms of hostility to the Austro-Hungarian government, and, finally, 10. To notify the imperial and royal government without delay of the execution of the measures comprised under the preceding heads. The Austro-Hungarian government expect the reply of the royal government at the latest by 6 o'clock on Saturday evening, the 25th July. A memorandum dealing with the results of the magisterial inquiry at Sarajevo with regard to the official mentioned under heads 7 and 8 is attached to this note. I have the honor to request Your Excellency to bring the contents of this note to the knowledge of the government to which you are accredited, accompanying your communication with the following observations. On the 31st of March, 1909, the Royal Serbian government addressed to Austria-Hungary the declaration of which the text is reproduced above. On the very day after this declaration, Serbia embarked on a policy of instilling revolutionary ideas into the Serb subjects of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, and so preparing for the separation of the Austro-Hungarian territory on the Serbian frontier. Serbia became the center of a criminal agitation. No time was lost in the formation of societies and groups, whose objects, either avowed or secret, was the creation of disorders on Austro-Hungarian territory. These societies and groups count among their members generals and diplomatists, government officials and judges, in short, men at the top of official and unofficial society in the kingdom. Serbian journalism is almost entirely directed at the service of this propaganda, which is directed against Austria-Hungary, and not a day passes without the organs of the Serbian press stirring up their readers to hatred or contempt for the neighboring monarchy, or to outrages directed more or less openly against its security and integrity. A large number of agents are employed in carrying on by every means the agitation against Austria-Hungary and corrupting the youth in the frontier provinces. Since the recent Balkan crisis, there has been a recrudescence of the spirit of conspiracy inherent in Serbian politicians, which has left such sanguinary imprints on the history of the kingdom. Individuals belonging formally to bands employed in Macedonia have come to place themselves at the disposal of the terrorist propaganda against Austria-Hungary. In the presence of these doings, to which Austria-Hungary has been exposed for years, the Serbian government have not thought it incumbent on them to take the slightest step. The Serbian government have thus failed in the duty imposed on them by the solemn declaration of the 31st of March, 1909, and acted in opposition to the will of Europe and the undertaking given to Austria-Hungary. The patience of the imperial and royal government in the face of the provocative attitude of Serbia was inspired by the territorial disinterestedness of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy and the hope that the Serbian government would end in spite of everything by appreciating Austria-Hungary's friendship at its true value. By observing a benevolent attitude toward the political interests of Serbia, the imperial and royal government hoped that the kingdom would finally decide to follow an analogous line of conduct on its own side. In particular, Austria-Hungary expected a development of this kind in the political ideas of Serbia, when, after the events of 1912, the imperial and royal government, by its disinterested and ungrudging attitude, made such a considerable aggrandizement of Serbia possible. The benevolence which Austria-Hungary showed toward the neighboring state had no restraining effect on the proceedings of the kingdom, which continued to tolerate on its territory a propaganda of which the fatal consequences were demonstrated to the whole world on the 28th June last, when the heir presumptive to the monarchy and his illustrious consort fell victims to a plot hatched at Belgrade. In the presence of this state of things, the imperial and royal government have felt compelled to take new and urgent steps at Belgrade with a view to inducing the Serbian government to stop the incendiary movement that is threatening the security and integrity of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. The imperial and royal government are convinced that in taking this step they will find themselves in full agreement with the sentiments of all civilized nations, who cannot permit regicide to become a weapon that can be employed with impunity in political strife, and the peace of Europe to be continually disturbed by movements emanating from Belgrade. In support of the above, the imperial and royal government hold at the disposal of the British government a dossier elucidating the Serbian intrigues and the connection between these intrigues and the murder of the 28th June. An identical communication has been addressed to the imperial and royal representatives accredited to the other signatory powers. You are authorized to leave a copy of this dispatch in the hands of the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Vienna, July 24, 1914. Annex. The criminal inquiry opened by the court of Sarajevo against Gavrilo Princip and his accessories in and before the act of assassination committed by them on the 28th June last has up to the present led to the following conclusions. 1. The plot, having as its object the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand at the time of his visit to Sarajevo, was formed at Belgrade by Gavrilo Princip, Nedeljko Kabrinovic, Milan Ciganovic, and Trifko Grabez, with the assistance of Commander Voja Tankovic. 2. The 6 bombs and the 4 Browning pistols and ammunition with which the guilty parties committed the act were delivered to Princip, Kabrinovic, and Grabez by the man Milan Ciganovic and Commander Voja Tankovic at Belgrade. 3. The bombs are hand grenades coming from the arms depot of the Serbian army at Kragujevac. 4. In order to ensure the success of the act, Ciganovic taught Princip, Kabrinovic, and Grabes how to use the bombs, and gave lessons in firing Browning pistols to Princip and Grabes in a forest near the shooting ground at Topšida. 5. To enable Princip, Kabrinovic, and Grabes to cross the frontier of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and smuggle in their contraband of arms secretly, a secret system of transport was organized by Ciganovic. By this arrangement the introduction into Bosnia-Herzegovina of criminals and their arms was effected by the officials controlling the frontiers and Shabak, Raid Popovic, and Loznica, as well as by the customs officer Rudivoj Grubic, of Loznica, with the assistance of various individuals.